And we are still continuing on that area of talking about corporate governance. I've given you my objectives for this discussion. Can somebody remind us what those objectives were? Not yours, but mine. JM. Why, in preparing the material I prepared, I was trying to achieve three things.
I think you are not arrived, maybe. In terms of...
No, I just did it just before lunch. I gave you three objectives for which I was hoping our discussion will achieve. Jem, can you remember any? There was a commitment to vision, so that's why we are trying to get a vision, an agreement about where you are going. Number two,
define the rules of the game.
Agree the rules. Hopefully, you agree the rule of the game, so that allows not to waste time along the way as you go towards that. Number three, teamwork. JM, now do you agree? I did that. Okay. Yeah, that's what we are trying to do in our discussion today. I'm reading Daniel chapter 6, verse 4. At this, the administrators and satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. I believe, still emphasizing on the vision, those words that JM emphasized to us. Yes. In order to honor, what did he say? Quality service for the glory of God. Yes. Means that in the vision of the organization, the aim will be that this statement will describe Kikuyu Hospital. That this statement will describe Tenwick Hospital. That every Chak hospital will be described. That people will be trying to say, how can we deal with this CEO? How can we deal with this chairman of the board? How can we destroy this hospital? And they will look everywhere, and they will have watakuwa na kazi gumu. Because anything they try, they can't find you. At all, they can't find you. They could not find grounds for charges against. That's what I'm hoping, against the organization. In the organizational conduct of affairs, they were unable to find any charge. They could find no corruption. And why was all this possible? Because everything they did was trustworthy, neither corrupt nor negligent. My hope is that out of this retreat, that will be at the back of your mind. We must achieve things, but not at any cost. Yes. I keep telling people that vision is a noun. It describes exactly what you want to achieve or what you hope you'll achieve. Mission is a verb. What you will do in order to achieve it. Verb, if you look at the statement, mission must always be a verb. It must be an action. What you will do. Core values are non-negotiable convictions. Non-negotiable convictions within which you will travel to your vision. So, unfortunately, core values are barriers to achievement. Because they tell you, sorry, I want to achieve, but not at any cost. I'll travel within them. And we are told 6 core values. All those values means, if you are to break that core value, you would rather fail than break it. So there will be many opportunities to grow towards your vision, which will be stopped by the core values. And that's why they don't recommend you putting more than 5, 6. Because every one of them is and you can tell whether there's a difference between a statement of core value and lived out core values. If something is a core value, it will never be discussed in management or board. If you break a core value, it's not discussed. You are fired yourself. That's the one thing where it's not debated. Do we remove him? He has removed himself. Because you see, if the core values, you can't call them core values. You know, you can call it a value, but don't call it core. Because core means it is non-negotiable. You know, I always laugh, Bishop, because I had a friend of mine, a pastor, and when HIV came, 80s, 90s, a family was moving away from the parish to another place. But the girl was going to Start 8. When Start 8 was just beginning. So the family wondered, who can we leave our young teenage daughter with? They felt the safest place to leave the child is with the pastor. And the wife agreed. So they left the daughter there. And therefore she was able to finish Start 8 and then join the rest of the family. Come February, March, and she looked rounded. You understand what I mean? So, obviously, they cannot associate it with the previous place. They associate it with new place where they are. Says, no. It happened back there. And of course, finally, the child was born. It was very clear where the child came from. So, of course, they couldn't believe it. They came all the way and said, how can this happen? Of course, they came. Remember, they are members of the church. Yes. So they came very happy to say, how did this happen? How can we leave your child? And you are supposed to protect, and you are the problem. You know what the girl said? That the pastor argued that since you are young, you cannot give me HIV/AIDS. In other words, the pastor doesn't mind being immoral, but he fears HIV. But with a small girl, there is no possibility of HIV. Of course, not arguing, not knowing he himself may be passing it. Because if he's not the only one, we have no idea. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I was talking to some of the elders. Yes, they discussed the matter. They decided to suspend the pastor, and the church structure agreed to suspend it. But the wife went to the meeting for appeal. Argument. What do you think we shall be eating? He was the only bread winner. I was telling my wife, this is very interesting. This wife and her husband believe that core values are not core values. Because in a core value, you cannot be a pastor who is immoral. Yes. Pastor and immoral do not go in the same sentence. So obviously, it means however good as a preacher you are, the moment it is not suspected, when it is proved, because again, you cannot fire somebody on the basis of suspicion. The Bible says it must be established in the mouth of 2 or 3. Even if the first one was a bishop, it's still not enough to convict somebody. But you get a second hand at that. Once it's established, if you want to know whether something is a core value, it's whether that person will remain in that organization. If they remain, for the board to continue having that in their statement, it's a contradiction. Let me read it again. You hear about this guy. The administrators and the satrap tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel. Let's say against your organization. Where? In their conduct of affairs. But they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. But I thought as a board, that's something we need to internalize. Corruption is lack of ethics. Negligence is lack of effectiveness and efficiency. Those are two different things. You can be moral, ethical, but lazy. Laziness is not necessarily lack of ethics. You can be ethical, but basically not effective. Again, you are not going to achieve. So our vision is to get staff and get board and get people that are not only not corrupt, they are also not negligent. They actually achieve whatever they are supposed to achieve. And I think that's something that will be very, very important. So the work of the board is to ensure that that is what is happening in the organization. And I'll keep emphasizing. It's the responsibility of the board to ensure ethics are in organizations. They say the fish rots from the head. So you can't say that, I don't know why they are stealing like that. The board doesn't steal. You are responsible for the stealing by the clerk. Are we together?
Yes.
Yeah, because if you had employed correctly,
Yes.
those people also have employed correctly. So the thief clerk is a responsibility of the board. And that needs to be understood. Now, but some of these problems come because of your theory. When you come to the organization, what's your understanding of your role as a board? 1992, I just saw a letter from a minister appointing me to a parastatal. I'll not tell you which one, in case you associate me with the corruption there. But, but I was appointed a member of a board, and I discovered they don't ask you, they don't request you. The letter simply from the minister said, congratulations on your appointment to such and such board of directors. I didn't ask them. I didn't apply. Not only did I apply, I was not interested. With the corruption being where it was in 1990s, I did not want my name to be associated with that place. But I'm very happy about part of the orientation of the board. I was able to be given the State Corporation Act, and I read there that anything that goes wrong in the parastatal, it is the directors who are there responsible, not management. So that's unfair. You only meet 3-4 times a year. But that's what the act actually says. Next time you look at it. It actually says the responsibility, accountability is with the board, not management. And it must be the same here. There needs to be understanding that it's better not to join the board. If you join it, then you can't say it doesn't matter what's happening in the organization. But it all depends on your theory, the theory of your theory of what the board does. There's one theory that is called the agency theory. It's defined the relationship between the principals, such as shareholders or member churches for your organization, and agents, such as directors of company. You see yourself as an agent. According to this theory, the principals of the company hire the agents to perform work. The principals delegate the work of running the business to the directors or manager, who are agents of shareholders. The shareholders expect the agents to act and make decisions in the best interest of the principal. So you can see yourself here as an agent. So you are in the board. In other words, we are not really owners. We are agents. So there is no ownership if you operate with the agency theory. But there's another theory called the stewardship theory. Again, as you come to the board, you need to find out, is that the theory you operate under? The steward theory states that a steward protects and maximizes shareholders' wealth through firm performance. Stewards are company executives and managers working for the shareholders, protects and makes profit for the shareholders. The stewards are satisfied and motivated when organizational success is attained. It stresses on the position of employees or executives to act more autonomously so that the shareholders' returns are maximized. The employees take ownership of their jobs and work at them diligently. In other words, as a board, you don't see yourself as agents. You see yourself as stewards. Therefore, as a steward, you take ownership. A steward is a person who manages something on behalf of another. So the board are stewards. And it therefore means the owner is not involved. All he wants is, you can report later, but you are the one running. So the board now takes ownership of what is happening on the ground and can be held accountable, unlike the agency theory. The third theory here is called the stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory incorporates the accountability of management to a broad range of stakeholders. It says that managers in organizations have a network of relationships to serve. This includes the suppliers, the employees, and business partners. The theory focuses on managerial decision-making, and interests of all stakeholders have intrinsic value, and no set of interests is assumed to dominate the others. Here, the theory opens up and says, you as a board, you are here to ensure the suppliers are well treated. You do not want to hear of a supplier, what's the word being used these days? Padding bills. It's a big thing in Kenya, isn't it? And according to the president yesterday, it's in billions. What that means is there is somebody whose children had to be returned because they could not pay school fees. He's a millionaire, but all the money was put into the project and it was not paid. So a board that sees itself a stakeholder, with a stakeholder theory, sees their responsibility as ensuring all stakeholders, including the shareholders, are treated well. You don't just work as agent theory, you are just thinking you're agent of the owners. Stakeholder is that you look at who are the stakeholders I deal with, and am I serving all of them? So when you say an organization is successful in this stakeholder theory, it is there everybody happy? You know, that I made money, yes, but were the suppliers happy? Were the customers happy? Were the staff happy? Is the landlord happy? That's really what you're going. Then the other theory is called the resource dependency theory. Resource dependency theory. The resource dependency theory focuses on the role of board directors in providing access to resources needed by the firm. It says that directors play an important role in providing or securing essential resources to an organization through their linkages to the external environment. The provision of resources enhances organizational functioning, firm's performance, and survival. The directors bring resources to the firm, such as information, skills, access to key constituents, such as suppliers, buyers, public policy makers, social groups, as well as legitimacy. Director can be classified into 4 categories of insiders, business experts, support specialists, and community influencers. So again, you ask yourself, do I see the board as its work is to give us money? How did you use that money? No, that's not your role. Your role was to give us the money. This board has failed. Why? They were supposed to bring 20 million. They only brought 10 million. Because the staff see the board as their main role is actually bringing in resources. And if the board doesn't bring resources, they are seen as failures. The unfortunate thing of classification is that the truth is, there's a little, in a good board, there's a little of all of them. Do you get that? Yeah. But if you are just one, there will be a problem. The other one I want is to refer. There are many others, but I want to talk about transaction cost theory. Transaction cost theory states that a company has a number of contracts within the company itself or with market through which it creates value for the company. There is cost associated with each contract with the external party. Such cost is called transaction cost. If transaction cost of using the market is higher, the company would undertake that transaction itself. In other words, the work of the board is to determine what is the cheapest way of doing something and give approval to the cheapest rather than any other way. But there's even a political theory. Political theory brings the approach of developing voting support from shareholders rather than by purchasing voting power. It highlights the allocation of corporate power, profits, and privileges are determined by the government level. You are seen here, you are seen as a political body. So people can buy you. People can bribe you. In other words, because the director is a voter. They could determine whether I go or I don't. And you are seen in that way. I also wanted us to see what President Obama talked about in looking at governance. And I want to ask the internal auditor to just read the speech to us.
What Africa needs is not more strong men. It needs more strong democratic institutions that will stand the test of time. Without good governance, no amount of oil, no amount of aid, no amount of effort can guarantee Nigeria, it's Nigeria.
Yeah, Nigeria as well.
Nigeria's success. But with good governance, nothing can stop Nigeria. It's the same message that I have carried in all my meetings, including my meeting this afternoon with your president. The United States supports the 7-point agenda for reform that was outlined by President Yar'Adua. We believe that delivering on roads and on electricity and on education and all other points of the agenda will demonstrate the kind of concrete progress that the people of Nigeria are waiting for.
Go on.
The fundamental aim of good governance is to focus on delivering the best outcome for employees and other stakeholders, free of other influences. Good governance should result in good outcomes for those who elect not to make choices, but also encourage employees to take ownership and provide them with a framework to help them deliver even better outcomes by making the choices that best suit them.
Keep going.
Leadership that are accountable and responsive to their stakeholders, transparent in their reporting on the use of resources and decision making, and that create opportunities for participation in policy and service delivery. Good governance in a country stems from a set of favorable political conditions in which people have the right to vote, exercise oversight, and seek redress from politicians and officials. The real test of good governance is when citizens feel secure and trust government to conduct public affairs in the best interest of society as a whole, rather than the privileged few.
Okay, look at the benefits.
The benefits of good governance are reflected in all institutions that demonstrate integrity in appointments at all levels, both external and internal. Strong leadership and management skills in all the places where they are needed. Processes in places for monitoring and quality of service offered, and ways of improving that quality with appropriate stakeholders' involvement. Processes in place to deliver improvement in research quality is assuming that there is significant research activity. Lean and competent administration. Then there is robust and transparent financial systems, especially regarding procurement, and strong internal and external audit. Then there is effective and transparent mechanism to determine remuneration levels. Then strong human resources processes such as appraisal, development, and dealing with poor performance.
The last bit now.
Leads to better decisions. Decisions that are informed by good information and data, by stakeholders' views, and by open and honest debate will generally reflect the broad interests of the community. This does not assume that everyone will think each decision is the right one, but members of the community are more likely to accept the outcomes if the process has been good. Even if they don't agree with the decision, they will also be less tempted to continue fighting or attempting to overturn the decision. So even the most difficult and controversial decisions are more likely to stick.
I want you to note what President Obama is saying. Decisions that are informed by good information.
Yes.
And that's one of the things the board needs to find out. Are you really informed before making a decision? Or do people come quickly and say, we want to go to Mombasa? Hands up those who want to go to Mombasa. And you have no information on it. You will still make a decision, but it's not going to be a good decision because you don't actually have information. That's why I was very happy with the CEO taking the trouble to take us through his presentation. Some of you, of course, it was boring because you have heard it many times. But he knew though among us, people who have not come to the board before. He took the trouble for those of us who are new to actually give us information so that when we make decisions, we can see what relates to what, how it affects. And those of us who are there and have actually forgotten, which happens, now cannot claim to be forgotten. He secretly was addressing us, hoping you will hear. And I hope you listened. Because he is saying good decisions must be based on the information. One of the things I will say that I was impressed when I was a director in one of the parastatals was the board papers. They were thoroughly prepared. And you remember I was still working for Shell. So I don't have the time to read because, of course, I have a busy job. But they would send a whole thing to my office So I would have to spend the night reading. Because every decision is there, and then they have a proposed decision. When we finally got to the board meeting, they have not read. And you know that most of the people who come to the board are PSs or people at the level of deputy PS. But they don't read. Remember, for them, they are employed to do that. They don't read. So when I keep asking questions, the CEO starts thinking, how come others are not asking? At one time, he finally says, Director Nganga, you seem to be on our case all the time. I said, surely, the reason you send the material in advance for me to read was that I could ask questions, isn't it? But he was used to the idea, agenda one, look at the decision, he doesn't even highlight the background. And of course, everybody says yes. Next, the meeting can end up in 1 hour, and you think it's efficient. It's a useless meeting, because it was not necessary for the board to be held, because they could have decided without the board, isn't it? So you can see clearly, if you want a good decision, you must ask yourself, was there information? But that's only step number one. Was the information? Did it move from the paper to the head? And some of it stick with the head, it doesn't go to the heart. You need that process. From me to the head, finally, so that it's actually giving you a direction as to how you would you can because your feelings to be advised by the head. But some people operate with the heart and they don't bring the mind in. So that information is supposed to influence the head, and finally the way you feel will be determined. So I think maybe I should have given the first board. As a student, when I went to the campus, we did not have Ufugamano House. Where Ufugamano House is. And remember, in our time, you are not asked which university. There was only one in Kenya. So when I say university, I don't mean another one. There was only one. So where Ufugamano is was where our small chapel house was. Then with the help of NCCK, we were able to get money from Germany, and that land the Ufugamano was built. I was the chairman, the first chairman, when you opened Ufugamano. So I joined the board of Ufugamano to represent the students. Who was coming? The Archbishop of the Anglican Church, the Archbishop of the Catholic Church. These are, and remember, I'm a small boy in my early 20s. So I sat there listening. Again, the board papers were given, but there was no discussion. And I don't blame the CEO. Those church leaders, now I'm not sure whether they read or did not ask any question. So the meeting would end up, yes, next, yes, next. And I thought, was it necessary to have this board meeting? People, Bwana Inzeki represents the Archbishop. He used to come from Nakuru. We are talking about 50 years ago. He used to come from Nakuru. He had driven all the way, but there are no questions. The meeting. At that time, I'm chairman of the University Christian Union Executive, and our meeting could not end up before midnight. We would start at 8, and it could not take less than 3 hours. Because anything you say, somebody is asking, somebody is recommending, somebody is giving alternatives. I come to this old people's meeting. I decided not to learn. I thought, it's not worth to spend all your money to come and say yes. You could have said yes by phone, isn't it? So you need to understand as you talk about the board, this idea of information is pretty tricky. Good information. Number 2, data. Because information and data is not the same. And like now, the things we are saying when we are talking about our vision, we kept saying it needs to be reduced to measurable. Remember, SMART objectives? They must be measurable. How can you actually measure it? If you don't have a way of measuring, it will just be what is called motherhood statement. I'm not against mothers, but motherhood statement means you are a good child. It means absolutely nothing. That's a motherhood statement. But if she could say, you are a good child because you have obeyed. Now he understands. To be a good boy means to obey. So data is what tells you what people mean. And you must develop data for you to make good decisions. Obama goes on to say, stakeholder views. In other words, before every decision, you must ask, what do the staff think? What do the customers think? What do other people think? Of course, you have heard what the managers think. Find out. And once the CEO knows that you'll be asked such questions, he will not come without other people's stakeholder views. Because there are perspectives, and we look at things terribly differently. That's why you have to be very careful before telling somebody they are lying. Because they may be just seeing the same thing from different perspectives. Remember the elephant? And the blind people went to see it? One thought it's a stick. Can't remember. The other one thought it's a wall. They were all telling the truth, but from their perspective. That's why you are needing stakeholder views, because they will not be exactly the same. They will be different, depending. Do you understand why the gospel are for? Because each gives its different perspective. In the process, we now tell the truth, isn't it? The story is told from this angle, that angle, that angle. Now you fully understand how the 5,000 were fed. Now, so it's important to understand, for you to make good decisions, you must always see a viewpoint. I was sent by Shell to South Africa to learn how adults learn. And one of the things I came up with was one of the things was they said, when you are talking to the adults, always assume there's somebody in the group who knows the subject better than you. You know, that makes you humble. Yes. Because they are not like young people. Young people is an empty head. Fill it with whatever you want. These other adults, they already know. So your job will be to help them to come up with what they have. If they still have a limited area, you do top up. Not feeling bad, top up. And that's not the only thing I learned. They said, always, whatever subject you are teaching, look at various perspectives. This person would see it this way. This one would see it this way. This one would see it this way. Because if you teach the subject from your perspective, the people listening may not have your perspective. So they don't even understand what you are talking about. But look at it. For example, you are talking about the board. How do the staff look at it? How do the members look at it? You know, look at the perspectives. So all that is stakeholder views. And they will make your decision better, even if you don't agree with them. But know what it is they think. What view do they have? You will still make up your view or your decision, but to enrich it. Then, according to this world leader, Barack, you will never be able to make a decision if there is no participation by the people who are making the decision. He calls it open and honest debate. Open and honest debate. Totally unlike the one in the Fugamano House, the first board, because I was in the founding board of the organization. I hope it's not like that now. But if there is no debate, okay, it slows you down. A meeting that would have ended 1 hour, you end up in 2. But without it, don't have the board meeting. That's why I was talking about the idea of an executive as more a body. But if you really are calling them together, there must be enough time to listen to the parties, hear their views. Open and honest debate. I was going to talk about it later, but one of the weaknesses of boards is something called groupthink. Ever heard of groupthink? Yes. It's a very dangerous thing. Unfortunately, groupthink doesn't mean the word. Because groupthink looks like a group thinking. Groupthink is a group not thinking. It's the opposite. I don't know why they did not look for a better word. But you Google it up and you hear. Groupthink means the group is not thinking. And what normally happens, at another time maybe you can spend time on it, is that in the board, there is one of the people becomes such an expert. Any subject, he knows. So whenever an issue comes, they turn to Dongo, what's your comment? As soon as Dongo gives comment, others say, I agree with him. Everybody agrees. So only Dongo is a thinker. The others wasted their time coming. Because Dongo could have sent his opinion by email. Am I right? Yeah. So groupthink is a dangerous thing. I'm sure you have read some books by Chuck Colson. Chuck Colson was jailed because of Watergate scandal. And in prison, he got saved. If you ever see his books, he was one of the top lawyers in America. And so he was picked by Nixon to be his legal advisor. And he says, because the reason he ended up in prison is because he was in the decision making for the campaign of Nixon coming for a second term. And they said they had such a high respect for Nixon. If Nixon said something, they found they are wasting their time asking questions. So within no time, an idea came. Our guy could win if we knew what the other people are doing. The rest of it was automatic. Find a way of bagging their meetings. So that by the time they come, all the information or the opposition was available for them to make decision making. When it was discovered, they had bagged. That's what is called the Watergate scandal. And he was jailed. Fortunately for him, he got saved in prison and is the founder of the famous Prison Fellowship. He died the other day and has written fantastic books, one of the best Christian writers we know of the last century, out of that. But it came from groupthink. I hear we had the same problem with the J.F. Kennedy. The guy was so bright and informed, he intimidated his advisors. So he found it very difficult to tell him, my friend, a board that gets somebody like that, and you know you can't blame him. He just happens to be clever. But the work of the chairman of the board is to say, Odomo, that's a wonderful idea. Otieno, what do you think? It's good. Yeah, it's good. But put it in your own words. Now, when he puts in those words, it's when you realize he doesn't agree with Odomo. But he felt too intimidated to oppose whoever opposes Odomo. Nobody. So I think it's important to understand groupthink, and that's what this man is saying. It's not a good board that suffers from groupthink. And maybe that's a subject you need to study, because I normally, in my training of leadership, I normally spend quite a bit of time, because to me, it's a very reason. And most churches suffer from groupthink. Amen. I don't mean all. I said most. I'm careful with my words. I have found very few churches that don't suffer from groupthink. 3 reasons. Number 1, the pastor is a holy man. How can you ask him a question? Number 2, the pastor thinks that he has breakfast with God every morning. What can other people inform him? What can other people inform him on? The first problem is with the people looking. The other one is his own problem. And thirdly and importantly is that he is too busy to waste time. So he doesn't see why he spends all the time on. He wants a quick something. Those 3 things contribute. The pastor is not aware. You know, like I told you, I used to live in Kisumu. And I was attending, my Swahili is pretty bad. So I looked for an English-speaking church, 1980s. And I found an English-speaking with a Muzungu in Kisumu. One of the people attending that church was the Kisumu girls' teacher in home economics. That's a graduate. Then the pastor's wife, the Muzungu, thought that women need to be taught home things. So I found this lady seated there, listening to a high school dropout of a Muzungu, teaching them how to bake. Remember, she's a lecturer. She's a teacher in the subject. Oh, hey, Mama Kanisa. No, so basically, she is making the Muzungu feel nice. But she is learning nothing. So one day my wife asked, why do you sit there? Oh, it's good for fellowship. Now, you know, that pastor's wife needed to be taught. But now she does not offer her training because she knows better than me. For her, she knows because she grew up in the home doing. For her, she knows the science of it. But you can't do that. And unfortunately, she is not alone. Almost anywhere we go, we find members do not help their pastors. They want the pastor to feel honored. They want the pastor to feel respected. Therefore, they think asking questions is being rude. And anyway, you are aware that when finally your wife will be threatening to go, it is the same pastor who will convince her to stay. So you dare not. Touch not the anointed of the Lord. So in the end, many church meetings are just a waste of time. If they are not that bad, the ones that are better have a kitchen cabinet. You understand the term kitchen cabinet? 2 or 3 people who are meeting in the pastor's office before the committee meeting. The others are just flower girls. There's nothing they are contributing. You cannot claim to have a good board until everybody feels the freedom, to use Obama's word, to have open and honest debate on the issues, according to him. And then the last item is that the decisions generally reflect broad interests of the community. In other words, you always ask, by the way, we are just representatives. How is this decision going to impact the community? For you, the member hospitals, whatever. Anyway, I want to show you, according to the balanced scorecard, the 4 perspectives that can help the board to make good decisions that are balanced. HR, you read the perspectives from whichever angle you want. You can start with any.
I will start with financial. To succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders, internal business processes, to satisfy our shareholders and customers? What businesses process must we excel at? Learning and growth. To achieve our vision, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve customer? To achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers?
So, the board must always check in the board meeting, have they had a financial perspective? In other words, the shareholders, the owners, what would they think of the decision we have made? Then they must ask themselves, what about the customer? Our patients, I think patients are the customers in hospitals, am I right? Here we are saying you make decisions that will give you the highest customer satisfaction index. Do you even do a customer satisfaction survey? Because you see, without that, you can be making good decisions that are bringing in money and everything. But the trouble with decisions that are not thought very highly by the customers is that this year you'll make money, long term you don't. My wife likes saying, adults vote with their legs. What does that mean? They just walk away. That's when, hiya, you mean they were not happy? They never argued with you, they simply left. So a hospital can be doing a lot of work, but because they are not having the customer perspective, they wonder, how come numbers are going down? But we have improved our quality. We have brought the best doctors. You have done all of that. But what do the customers think? Do you ever track the customer satisfaction index? Then, the next one is staff. The column on learning and growth. What do the staff think? You can make the shareholders happy, make the customers happy, but these people are looking at how to resign. They are applying jobs. Just when everybody think you are doing wonderful, the technical manager resigns, the customer service manager resigns, everybody resigns all at the same time. Because you did not think about continuous development of your staff. That's why we are calling it learning and growth. Do you have that perspective or not? Then finally, how are the internal controls, like the work of internal auditor, doesn't add any value? Sorry, sister. What's wrong? There's nothing additional. It's not bringing us more money. It's not. But without internal controls, sooner or later, the organization will go down. The ERP he is talking about may not. It's very expensive, by the way. It's in millions. So it does not seem to have immediate results. But it's all that. So those 4 perspectives, if a board is looking at it, will end up with a balanced view of whatever it is you are doing. I want to tell you, if you look at those perspectives, you avoid what are called the 8 social sins. 8 social sins by Garvey. These are enhanced by bad governance. If you have bad governance, you actually do them. JM is there. Just read for us the 8 social sins.
1. Wealth without work.
Are you hearing that?
Yes.
There is a kind of belief that you can be rich without, and people who work are just foolish. So and so is big. He makes deals. I think that's a Kenyan word. People don't work. Instead, they make deals. And they are big. And many, not all, but many very rich people do not work. They just make deals. Garvey called it a social sin. To imagine you'll be wealthy without work is a social sin. JM number 2.
Pleasure without conscience.
Yeah. See, I'm rich. I can do what I want, when I want, where I want. And it's, after all, I deserve it. The whole week I've worked so hard. Let me use the weekend. Pleasure without conscience.
The next one is knowledge without character.
And of course, we know that you find a lot of people are professors, but the way they treat their wives does not show somebody went to school. But this is knowledge without character. Number 4.
Commerce without morality.
Yeah, we are trading. Look at your side, I look at my side. Number 5.
Science without morality.
6.
Religion without sacrifice.
Is that what is Shakahora? Religion without sacrifice. You tell people to give all their money and then they die, then your pocket becomes. I think that's basically what you are talking about.
Politics without principles.
I think that's actually Kenyan politics. Would you agree with me? And number 8.
Rights without responsibility.
Haki yetu. Haki yetu. Now, sorry, I'm not very politically very aware. I'm not good in politics. But I think that's what politics seems to be in Kenya. Rights without responsibility. You want this, but you're not willing to contribute to getting it. And you think you are right. All this is what the board must avoid if they want good governance. To encourage it is bad governance. But what do we mean when we talk about corporate governance? Corporate governance is a system of rules, practices, and processes by which a firm is directed and controlled. Corporate governance essentially involves balancing the interests of a company's main stakeholders, such as shareholders, senior management, executives, customers, suppliers, financiers, the government, and the community. Since corporate governance also provides the framework for attaining a common objectives, it encompasses practically every sphere of management, from action plans, internal controls, to performance management, and corporate disclosure. All of that is part of governance. We talked about, you can't talk about governance without good internal controls. Internal controls are the mechanisms, rules, and procedures implemented by a company to ensure the integrity of financial and accounting information, promote accountability, and prevent fraud. And I believe one of the big jobs of internal audit is to ensure this happens. Besides complying with laws and regulations and preventing employees from stealing assets or committing fraud, internal controls can help improve operational efficiency by improving the accuracy and timeliness of financial reporting. So that's why one of the 4 areas was internal controls. I want to define governance. Governance is a term that denotes the relationship existing between the body of government and its policy making and implementation activities and the general public. That is a quotation from Keman and Mallock. And even when we are talking about the board, when we talk about governance, we are talking about the relationship between management and staff and shareholders and stakeholders. The continual political process of governance cover different areas, including the political, the administrative, the economic, and social, cultural components of the state, which are necessary to assure the common good and preservation of society. So you can have governance with several options. Let's start by talking about who governs. Number 1, if you have autocracy, and you can have autocracy even in an organization, you can have autocracy. This is governing is done by a single individual. You can call him a CEO, a king, or a dictator, for instance. That is autocracy. And by the way, it is there in, I've consulted for an organization, not in church, insurance, and I was told, I was trying to introduce to them the balance scorecard and the performance management system. And they said, after a lot of it, they paid me a lot of money, but in the end they said, you're just wasting your time. Who gets promoted here, the chair determines. Yes. And if he likes you, like you are nicely, and he's a man and he likes your dressing, the management will say, you are getting this bonus. Then you say, no, that one. And this is money. He owns the company. He owns most of the shares. You get different. So he said, why are you spending so much of time? It will not work. So I finally did a staff satisfaction index for them. And I needed to present it to the chair. I had really presented it to the CEO, and I presented it to the chair. And I told them what they feel. He says, how can they feel like that? And I do so much for them. Because he actually means good in doing all that. He is trying to encourage. What he doesn't know is that he is encouraging people in a way that discourages others. So it's very, very, very important to understand. In autocracy, if you have autocracy, because you are not the bank of knowledge, there will be always something. The advantage of autocracy is speedy decisions. Second advantage of autocracy is less time wasted by management and very fewer managers. The third advantage of autocracy is only one person is to blame. He has accepted he's the one who makes decisions. If it goes down, you hold him responsible. But the negative part, autocracy, is he is not aware. He has less information. He is looking at things with one perspective. He is unable to see his blind spots. Number 2, with autocracy, people will stay with you as long as they need you. In other words, until I find another job, I will stay here, isn't it? But so you keep losing. The turnover of staff is very, very high. And that problem of autocracy, where one man show, is the very fact that in the end, the organization cannot grow very far. because of poverty of ideas, but also inability to keep staff long term. But you can decide you don't want aristocracy, you want oligarchy. By the way, aristocracy is possible even with a board. You can have a board, but the board is the type I described earlier. You remember?
Yes, nothing.
Yeah, the board suffering from groupthink. Anyway, oligarchy. Here, a small group, where a small group, perhaps landowners, military officers, or wealthy merchants, let me call it a kitchen cabinet. Remember kitchen cabinet? Yeah, controls most of the government decisions. That's oligarchy. It's a little better than autocracy because he has now taken a few people into the decision-making process. So people normally recommend democracy. Here, more people participate and have some influence over decision-making. Again, if you have a board that is very democratic, everybody is heard. The advantages of democracy is you have a broader viewpoint taken into account. That's if it is not suffering from groupthink. And therefore, their decisions are likely to be of better quality than single people. How do we know that? Because about judges. When a matter is not very important, it's decided by one guy. When it becomes more important, it's decided by 3 judges. If it is supremely important, it's decided by 7 judges. Why? Same principle. The increase in groups improves the quality of decisions, as long as they are not suffering from groupthink. So it's very, very important to understand that's the advantage of democracy. You are getting more viewpoints, you are making better decisions. Number 2, democracy ensures everybody goes out of the meeting feeling he was heard. And even if the decision made is not his recommendation, he is convinced about the other decision, although somebody else may have suggested it. And that ensures you have a team that is working together, that is motivated to move forward. The third reason why democracy is good for any and every organization is the fact that with democracy, a loss of one person cannot stop the organization going on. Because everybody understands what was being done. They understood the basis of decision. So if one person resigns, the thing runs like now nobody came out. The negative thing about democracy, let me say, democracy is a very bad form of government. The only trouble is that all the others are worse. You know, the first problem with democracy is that a professor and Mama Boga have won 1 vote. Surely the level of knowledge is not the same. Can you see why we elect all kinds of funny people? Because democracy is very weak. You know, there are people waiting to be told. And they do what they are told. If the person telling them has a big crowd, the decision will be made wrong. That's one of the weaknesses of democracy. It assumes the 1 vote for everybody. The second problem of democracy is the fact it's very slow. The board has not met. In the meanwhile, your competitor goes, your idea leaks. And as you are busy making decisions, you just notice, like you have just discussed in Shell, you did not make a decision, we are waiting for London to approve it, then you just see Total implemented. So democracy is a slow method, and because of that slow method, you can lose. That's why dictatorship is certainly fast. You have heard of the saying, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go with them. Democracy is for going far, make long, but it has its own problem. And thirdly, when you talk about democracy, one of these evils is that because it makes decisions on the basis of votes, the person elected to the committee or whatever start assuming he is clever. And yet democracy at no time promised to pick the best person. It makes the most popular. You know, there's no promise in democracy that you will pick the best. In fact, you are not told to pick the best. You are told to pick the one you want. Am I communicating? So democracy does not help with the competency improvement. Because if the majority are mediocre, they don't elect another mediocre person. That's the weakness of democracy. That it does not pick the best, it picks the most popular. Then after that, people say, I'm the most popular. No. That's correct. But you are the best, you are lying to yourself. You are not elected because you are the best. You are elected because you are the most popular. And that's a weakness. So in the same thing, in the board, you must be aware about this voting thing. Yes. Even as you want to carry everybody with you, you must listen also to expert advice. And I think that will be important. So we could go on and talk about constitutional government, authoritarian government, that come from authoritarian government, Republican, whatever. I want us to now look at characteristics of good governance. Characteristics of good governance. And they are all listed. They are all listed there. There are actually 9. 9. For you to say your organization is well governed, you must put a tick to all of them, not some of them, but all of them. Because if one of them is missing, according to the studies by experts in good governance, there will be something missing. So let's start with the first one. Accountable. Is the board accountable? Who does the board report to? And is it to report, or are they held to account? In other words, you can be accountable to somebody who doesn't care. So therefore you have nobody accountable. So it's very important to understand you cannot talk good governance until you can say the accountability. Everybody must report to somebody. And that's why these one-man churches have a problem. I normally speak in the universities quite a lot. I was in the university the other day because the graduating class wanted me to talk to them about life after campus. And I told them, forgive me if you are in this category, when you arrive in a town, one of the things I told them is to find a good church. Before a job, a good church. Where you have a place to start from. That's where you get a network. They even may be telling you where the jobs are. Look for a good church. Oh, but how can I tell a good church? I told them, don't think I have the answer to it, but I think I can tell you something. If you see a signboard, husband and wife, inviting you to their church, you don't go there. That's not Christ Church. That is their church. And people complaining, our pastor eats all the money, but it is his money. He does nothing wrong. He even showed you on the road. Yes. This is our church. The pastor is the leader, the wife is the treasurer. Because all the money belongs to them. You know the Bible church, Christ is the head, isn't it? Yeah. The one here, they are the heads. They determine. The other day I was speaking with somebody from a university who told me, I'm tired with my church. I was asked to be in the committee, but we make decisions. The next time we meet, we are doing matters arising, and the pastor has done the opposite of that. He said, but surely we debated this matter. He says, I'm the one with the vision. I'm the vision carrier. Yeah. So he asked us, vision? There. So what am I doing? This guy is a professor, wants to serve the Lord, has joined the committee, but he knows his ideas are useless. He will stay in the church so that he doesn't look disrespecting the pastor. But is he going to be talking again? No. Accountability. You must force it. If it's not happening, force it. Everybody, including board members, must feel they are being held to account. Something changes when you know you have somebody to report to. And that's the work of internal audit. To point out areas where people are not accountable. You must create systems that force people to report. That's why the last item I've been given on the program is how to evaluate the board. In other words, somebody else has to read. Did the board perform? That is holding the board to account. But most boards I know do not have a scorecard. They themselves do a scorecard for the management. And they quarrel the management, but they themselves have no scorecard. So nobody is holding them to account. Now, so that's a very, very important thing. I gave you a document to read, and they explained each one of these statements. Did you receive it?
Yes.
Okay. Second one, you cannot claim to be holding a good governance if you are not transparent. What does transparent mean? It means what you see is what you get. There's nothing hidden. There was who called it something up the sleeve. Dr. Mara, do you know what it means to have something up the sleeve? It is that you put a sword there, and I come to greet you, and you can see I'm not armed. As soon as you are now relaxed, I just pull it and kill you. So when you see, do you have something up the sleeve? It means the sleeve, because they used to have long shirts. Yes. If you've watched cowboy movies. So it is hidden there. So, a board with something up the sleeve is participating in bad governance. They must be transparent. And what you don't want to say, let's be clear, that's not an area I want you to know. But you can't pretend I know, and you know I don't. No, transparency is very important. 3 advantages of transparency. When an organization is transparent, it easily gets trusted. The moment I start thinking there is something you are hiding up the sleeve, I don't trust you, and that's quite a problem. Number 2, when things are not transparent, fear rules. Because you don't know what you don't know, and it could kill you. So fear rules. And when fear rules, I cannot operate at my best. Once the people in the organization are fearful, they do not give their best because they're acting out of fear. And that's not a very good thing. Number 3, when you are transparent, when you are not transparent, you yourself are wasting your time. Hiding things is very difficult. So you have to spend a lot of time hiding. Instead of progressing the organization, you are busy hiding. You need to understand that transparency is a key component in good governance. And according to this study, you don't have it. And it's very important. You know now, can you imagine how much money is being spent by all kinds of boards that the new constitution put, all to force transparency, to force the government transparency. Like now, sometimes I respect Uhuru because Uhuru was asking very pertinent questions. How can you bring 3 names of judges and expect me to sign like a fool? I will not sign. Remember, he refused to sign. Yes. Unfortunately, our constitution, in order to protect us from the president, gave him only the job of signing. In other words, the Judicial Commission decides who the judge will be. And he is not given options. He can only sign. But I know this is a thief. Take it to court. First of all, appoint him, then take him to court. All of that was to force transparency. Because the presidency felt like it's acting in darkness. So if you are, even in your governance, rate yourself. That will be the assignment I'll be giving in a short while. Rate yourself. Where can you rate the organization on transparency? Are there things you feel are hidden, the board doesn't know, or the board knows, management does not know, or the board knows, but they don't want the shareholders to know? And if they don't, do they tell them why they shouldn't know? Because obviously sometimes there are things that are dangerous to tell, but then you are not cheating people, they know. And I think that will be something important. The third one, responsiveness. Some boards are simply unresponsive. Pending bills, is that the issue? The transporter keeps coming, knocking at Chuck's office, keeps knocking, but he is not told there is no money. He is told, come tomorrow. And for the last 3 years, he is still told to come tomorrow. So the word to describe that is lack of responsibility. You can respond and tell me, brother, I have no money. Don't come until next year. But to create an impression, you are not responsive. People are crying. You are not telling them, sorry, this I can't give. Lack of responsiveness is bad governance. Because people end up feeling frustrated. And if they were hungry and you cannot give them food, maybe they will share their manna to last more days. But now they think tomorrow you'll give them food. So they ate everything today. Yeah, you need to ask yourself, in which way are responsive? Responsive boards are boards that do not take too long to make decisions and do not take even longer to advise what their decision is. And that lack of responsiveness slows down decision, number one. So you cannot quickly, Number two, it frustrates people who are involved. And number three, because of frustration, performance in the organization goes down. Those are the three things that will happen when you are not responsive. And government is good at it. You just talk like you're talking to yourself, and nothing happens. Have you noticed that? That's bad governance. You must tell people no or yes, or I'll tell you the answer tomorrow. That's at least what I was taught when I was growing up. God always answers prayer, but it's not always yes. It can be a yes, a no, or wait. But it's still a response. So I think it's important to understand this lack of responsiveness. If you are talking about good governance, ask yourself, is there something management have been asking? And for 2-3 board meetings, there's still no decision. Why? It's a difficult decision to make, therefore avoid it. That's bad governance. However difficult, you must be able to give response and say, because of this and this reason, can we decide it next time? And the date you give yourself, act by that date. Then we'll call you responsive. If the date you give yourself again, you don't respond, now you are still unresponsive because you are just playing games with me. The next thing is, their decisions must be equitable and inclusive. That inclusive word is one of the big words now politically, isn't it? Whether the government is shareholding company or is inclusive. Equitable does not mean equal. It means if I deserve, from the way we look, this guy is younger than me. He looks like he needs to grow. Yes. So if you give him 5 bananas and give me 2, it's equal because I'm old, I've eaten a lot, so let him grow. Give him 5. So you are not being equal, but you are being equitable on the basis of, at my age, I don't eat much. I'm not sure of that, but it's important to understand. So equitable means it's divided such that it makes sense, it's fair. Yeah. Equal means whether you are going to eat it or not. If there were 5 plus 2, 7, and we divide by 2, then it must be 3.5 you and 3.5 me, although mine I'll throw away. So that's now equal. So we are saying good governance does not go equal way. It goes equitable. In the process, it becomes inclusive. Nobody feels excluded. You know, you can be in the same board, but the chair, not this one, keeps asking, Dongo, what's your idea? Then next to Dongo is Atieno. Atieno has never asked any question. Atieno puts the hand and says, Atieno, I'll come back to you. Now, oh my God. By the end of the meeting, she feels, what does the chair have against me? She does not feel included. And that can happen even in homes. The parents do that, isn't it? So when we are saying a well-governed organization, everybody feels included. Like that guy who has said that years. He must have felt included. Otherwise he would have resigned. So it's important to understand, we are not even talking about promoting him, but he needs to feel appreciated, included, such that he feels a part and parcel of the organization, whether at the board level or in annual general meeting or among staff activities. We must emphasize a value called inclusiveness, where somebody, for example, if we are meeting in the board meeting, we will not allow others to come, but they must be given a good reason why they are not welcome. So that way they feel included. Yes. It doesn't mean included doesn't mean they come to every meeting, but it means to have a good reason. So you cannot talk about good governance when there is no inclusiveness. That kitchen and cabinet affair. The cabinet is known, but the debate doesn't happen in the cabinet, it happens in the kitchen. So they just go there to announce to the rest of the board. They don't feel included. And that's an issue. Next, if you are really having good governance, you must talk about being effective and efficient. Some boards are actually efficient but not effective. Others are actually efficient. Or what did I say? Effective and not efficient, or efficient and not effective. You know, effective means they get what they intended to get. They achieve therefore they're effective. You know, like if I have an axe, I can cut the kidoda, which is giving you trouble, but I will cut more meat than necessary. I'm assuming I'm a doctor, and I'm using an axe to cut something out. But if I could use those special gadgets of theirs, I'll be efficient. Because efficiency talks about optimum resources used, optimum time used. You know, that's what we are talking about, efficiency. Effectiveness is simply, did I accomplish? See, I wanted to cut the thing was too fat. I wanted to cut it out. So you need to ask yourself, is the board in its decisions, does it consider effectiveness and efficiency? Sometimes we are so taken up with efficiency, we become ineffective. Oh, no. You must no, but you see, it is true, I'll use that one, it's a better way, but it's going to the bush. No, this is the tarmac, but the tarmac is going to the bush. So I better pass the bad road, at least to be effective. Efficiency without effectiveness is over. So we are saying good governance, you must look at both, not one without the other. Are you effective, but are you efficient at the same time? Then, the next one is a good governance never breaks the law. You cannot be in good governance and be doing things that the law doesn't allow just because you cannot be caught. Good governance includes the rule of law. And there are people who break the law, because after all, those MPs are not reliable. Unfortunately, the only way of getting them out is not to vote for them. If you vote for them, the rules they make, you must obey, except if they're asking you to sin against God. But most rules are not against God. So you need to. So if they ask you to give your tax, don't say, but I didn't agree with it. Those MPs passed it. So until the court overthrows it, you must pay. Yeah, that's what it means to follow the rule of, not that you agree with it. Can you imagine the decision Jesus had to make? The Jews were so much against the colonizers, the Roman law. The coin was associated with them. It's a very tricky question. Should we pay our taxes? It says, bring that coin. Who said is there? Then give to Caesar what belongs, and to God what belongs. And with that statement, he told Christians to obey Caesar. So it's important to understand, as an organization, you need to do legal audits at least once a year. Legal audit is where you pay somebody to go through all your systems, not looking for money or whatever, but whether there is a law you are breaking by the way you are doing things. Once a year and every time you make a major decision, look for legal advice. If we do things this way, are we breaking in the law? So so it's important to understand. Sometimes people feel we are Christians. We don't. No. Jesus said, "You give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar." Even if you are a church body, you must. You cannot say you are in good governance. Again, I give you 3 reasons why breaking the law is not in your interest. Number 1, it's unbiblical. I've already shown you that. So if you cannot call yourself a Christian organization breaking the law, because the word of God is telling you to keep the law. Number 2, breaking the law means that you could very easily get yourself grounded with the very good intentions of serving the Lord. Once they catch you, so you lock you up. What happens to your vision? It's not wise to break the law. But thirdly and importantly, is that if you break it and you are not caught, and the Holy Spirit says nothing about it, then you know you don't have the Holy Spirit. Because you don't require to be caught to know you are doing wrong. So if you say, but nobody can catch me. I keep telling people, if you find you are driving and you find them flashing you, what are they asking you? When you are driving on the highway and you find the other guy, especially matatus, flashing you, what are they telling you? Wako bele.
Slow down.
Eh?
Slow down.
Yeah, wako bele. The other thing they are also telling you, what about your side? Wako bele. Now let me tell you something. The moment you are in that group, you are announcing you are going to hell. Because you see, you need to understand, you are announcing that you don't mind overspeeding, breaking the law, but you might be caught. This is a danger. And the moment your fear is the police, not God, you have nothing to do with God, isn't it? So keeping the law is a sign that the Spirit of God is at work in your life. I know you don't like it put that way, but it happens to be the truth. Yeah, it happens to be the. You know that thing. I'm now digressing. That thing is so bad that in churches, if a girl gets pregnant, she gets really molested by the church. You are an embarrassment to the church. As if pregnancy is a sin. I have gone through the Bible, and I've been a Christian from the day I got born again. It's more than 55 years ago. I have never seen a condemnation for pregnancy. Pregnancy is a blessing from God. How many women are trying to get pregnant and they can't? So, this teenage girl who has gotten pregnant is blessed. Problem is not the pregnancy. Pregnancy is that the pregnancy catches her in her sin. The problem is not the pregnancy. It's what she did to get pregnant. But if you keep emphasizing pregnancy, it means the girls will start doing family planning. Am I right? Yes. See, some parents are even giving condoms. Yes. In other words, it's okay, be immoral, but don't get caught. Now, if that's what you are teaching, is that Christianity? No. So if the board that does something like this, that just because you cannot be caught, you will break the law, is behaving in a similar way. I hope I've convinced you that it's not in your interest to break the law. Then, next, if there is good governance, it's participatory. In other words, participatory means that everybody feels, it's not just inclusive, everybody participates in the decision. Inclusive was, management includes me. Participatory is, that decision I contributed to it. Participatory form of management is good governance. And finally, instead of voting all the time, their governance is consensus-oriented. Consensus-oriented is a very slow method because it means we keep talking until you convince me. And I could be so difficult, takes you until the cows come home. But consensus, it was the way we are told, is the way the Africans worked. They didn't know anything about voting. The Wazés would talk and talk until they all aligned to one decision. So you are saying in good governance, people tend to care about the dissenting voice. And so bother to explain to him until, oh, is that what you meant? If you knew it, I would have agreed from the beginning. Now, that's consensus. And in good governance, the team remains cohesive without becoming groupthink. Because even the dissenting voice feels hard until they all are going the same direction. And I think that will be something important to talk about and to think about. Is there somebody with a question about the things I've discussed that far?
Yeah.
Yes? I'm listening.
Yeah. An observation.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a thing not only to be applied to the board,
Yeah.
but also to the management. And again, in different organizations and our church denominations, you see the board to some understanding appointed from the church organ.
Yeah.
And you see there is a gap between the church and the board, the facility. And also this applied to the church organ, to understand their roles under the board.
This thing describes the government, describes the board, describes the management team at every level. So everyone must apply. At no time are you allowed not to be participative. At no time are you allowed to be not equitable. At no time, whether you are talking about the church board, or the hospital board, or the church board, all of them, all these 7 points apply. Yeah.
Thank you. So I used to be in a board before, where you find maybe the management and the board. Because sometimes when we talk about governance, we may be more or less considerate of the board, but actually the movers of the governance, actually even the management, and to some extent the management. And sometimes you'll find maybe when there is either negative energy with the management team incomprehensive, or you find maybe the parties, in the management there's a clear division, where maybe one or two managers will meet and decide on behalf of all the other ones. It's like maybe those brains are reserved for. Then it will be a management decision that was made by one or two people. Then
that's what we call oligarchy.
Okay. Then the other thing now, so the negative energy.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so for me about in that board, there will be more investment in the management than even the board, because if you count the number of meetings for the board per quarter, they are minimal. But the entire aspect lies in the board. And then the other aspect also of the information and disclosure, as you said in the morning, in terms of even as you seek information, you get that information. All of these I will be able to, maybe in my interaction with some of the staff in that board that I was in that organization. Now, some people tell me, no, maybe there are some monies that are employed, they are still lying. Then when I would come to a board meeting like this, then I'll be told, those are people receiving information from on the corridors. Then 3 years, 4 years down the line, then the monies appears in those accounts that you are talking about from staff. So then in that organization, I was finding it difficult because, yes, you are told, so you wonder, is it a great fine you trust? But then you find those things, they appear in the course of time. So even as we invest in the board in terms of cohesion, and then information, and then so from now, so one time now, when we requested for them to present the accounts to the board, we were surprised to find those things that were being said to be in
corridor
appearing real life. So, and then maybe, so now that's what now maybe it comes in a way that there may be much more investment, either taking to managers, even in their own retreat, to train them on how to be cohesive. Because if you have a cohesive, let's say you have a good board, yes, but the management, they are loggerheads, negative energy, they are not cohesive. So the board may not even appear, may not even target, they do not even achieve much because most of what who is to implement the decision of the board is the management. So if the management cannot be able to drive the process.
But do you know we still hold the board responsible?
Yes. They hold the board. Now we are therefore seeking the board approval. So you will approve. So at times you may approve, but then for that cohesion now to move, and now to have that kind of fairness and equity, whereby all managers, they have something in between their ears. So, which is now, you can contribute. My decision may not be the best, but I can share my decision because of your decision. So, I mean, that cohesion.
No, that is called, what I'm calling it consensus.
Yes, consensus, yes.
Yeah, and that's what's lacking. But what part of your problem, from what you have said, was lack of transparency.
Yes.
The people telling you those are corridor information knew the truth.
They knew the truth, yes.
And they're in the board. They have been told, but the rest of the board should not know. So in order for you not to bring the information, instead of saying, let's check it, they say, no, don't bring us, corridor matters. There's somebody lacking transparency.
So maybe on the other corridor now...
But maybe, don't blame them, they have not attended a course like this. They didn't know the damage it can do.
And maybe the other thing I saw in the place where I was in that board before,
Yeah.
you'll find like it may be that in terms of like the board, they make decisions which would affect management. So one of the days being now maybe the goodies. If maybe you have someone, maybe I would let you please, you have a relative at home, bring a relative along. So when now I am here, I'm compromised because of either some goodies I'm given.
Yeah.
So when I come here, I may not be very management. So my hand is somehow tied. I cannot hit. So I must always play with it. So the thing, it became very effective.
You have now added another one.
Yes.
You had a corrupt board. But because the moment you benefit from being a board member, you are compromised. And that's why there is a non-conflict policy, isn't it? The only question is it implemented? Because I've seen it there. Is it implemented? Do people, for example, this board, has this been asked to sign no conflict policy reviewing last year? Because like when I was in Shell, every year we signed a document to say throughout the year, I was not involved in any conflict or possible conflicts in my work. So if you sign, it means if we discover later, we can even sue you. Yeah. But it's not enough to put it in the policy. There must be consequence management. What about if I refuse? For example, we are interviewing for the health program director. Are they called directors or managers? Head of. The guy coming for interview is the brother of my cousin. Okay, he's also my cousin. Now, and I'm sitting here to make a decision about him. Later, 3 years later, it's only a year. You mean you know him? How can you ask me whether I know him? We have one grandfather. Then you go back. That guy never declared. Shouldn't there be consequence on that director?
There should be. There should be consequence.
Yeah. So there needs to be, and that's a way of reminding him. That's why he signs regularly. Every board member signs. For example, there's some people resign from the board because as long as you're in the board, any tender you cannot participate.
Yes.
Your wife cannot participate. Yes. Your children cannot participate. You end up poor. The best thing is to resign from the board. Because how can they are eating meat and you can't eat. And you are the one dividing the meat. But that's what good governance is all about. Just means remaining poor. When I joined that parastatal, I issued a motion that no director will benefit from it. It was a parastatal dealing with billions of Kenya shillings. After I discussed it in the first board meeting, moving the motion, the next board meeting I looked, it was not in the minutes. Yes. So I asked, Chair, we discussed, do you remember the long debate? Yes. Where is it? He also pretended to be checking. The minutes not there. Of course I knew he had told the secretary not to put it there. Then as we were going out, one of the PSs asked me, we are not like you. You come from a private company. We earn very little. We can't put minutes like that. In other words, an admission that they are suffering for being in the board. So the reason they're in the board is to benefit. Then I'm telling them to commit not to benefit. But you can't be in a board and benefit from it. The moment you do, you are actually corrupt. Anyway, thank you for the information. Now, there is you can go all the way to the exercise.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, now, because when I was in that board, there was a law, but there was no practice.
There was what?
There was a law, but there was no practice. In terms of conflict of interest, you declare on
Yeah.
paper.
But they are doing the opposite.
You're doing the opposite. Maybe, could that maybe be like, I don't know, maybe if we, as we check our I think it's good to quantify. Because sometimes we say conflict of interest, maybe things like employment. Because even I have my brother employed. Okay, let me give an example for this Chuck. If my brother comes here and is employed at Chuck, or even my son, there's a compromise. He may also misbehave because his father is in the board. So then we need to put some clear, even.
Yeah, the only thing though is that in a conflict of interest policy, it's not for you to decide, it's for the board to decide. By the way, my son has applied.
Yes.
I can't stop him. I would like the board to decide. If the board decides it's okay, you are clean. If the board says no, you're not clean. But the board also sets a precedent. If they allow yours, they can't refuse mine. So the issue is not you punish yourself. Come openly. Let the board decide.
Then don't be involved in the recruitment.
Yeah. Yes.
I think also some of the decisions, like if you are the director, then you and your daughter end up being employed, you cannot end up creating a toxic work environment. Where, for example, if you suspect your daughter has committed something wrong, then you have to think, this is my daughter. We are human beings. What type of the level of the punishment that you give them may not be the same punishment that would apply to anybody else.
That's why we call it conflict of interest.
Yes. So that.
But the board can still say,
yes,
I can see the interest, but in this country,
yes,
other than John's daughter,
yes,
nobody knows that ERP system.
yeah.
We cannot punish ourselves, not because of something wrong, but because of a risk.
Yeah.
We will put rules.
Yeah.
For example, in places where husband and wife work, they put a rule that the wife can never report to the husband can never report to the wife, and they can never be in the same department. Am I communicating?
Yes.
Of course, it was much better if they were not in the same organization. But even if they are, there are rules you can create. So the major problem is lack of transparency, not owning up. Anyway, those questions, did you put people in groups, by the way? Tell them so that they're supposed to sit near each other. But you can go through the questions. In what areas of governance in your organization doing well? All the 9 aspects. Where are we doing well? And when you say well, give an example. Second question. In what areas of governance does your organization need to improve? Why? What has happened that makes you think it needs improvement? And that will be something important. Number 3, what would it take for your organization to improve in governance? Earlier you were saying areas need to improve. Now, give proper recommendations. What needs to be done for you to improve in that aspect? And finally, number 4, is there any provision that may need to be improved in your governance instruments? Remember, you are supposed to review the constitution, the strategic plan, what was that document you sent us?
Charter.
And the charter. So I'm giving you an assignment to look at them. In which ways do they need to be improved in one of the instruments? Because all those instruments are governance instruments. Now, I realize the best thing would be to, because we still have a few minutes before break, maybe the best thing is go to the president how. Now you have the assignment, when you, because you are not, Have you decided who is going in which groups?
Maybe you can.
There's some suggestion.
Okay, some suggestions.
Yeah, which I can read.
Yeah, okay. You listen to your grouping. Suggested grouping. You can refuse to enter according to Dr. Mwenda. It's only a suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Group 1.
Group 1 is Bishop Asiluto, Ruth Nabie, Maureen Maina, Peter Makodira, and Jack Odhiambo. Group 2, James.
Now, just before you go, are you okay?
How many groups do we need?
How many?
3.
That's the one with most people, but I know Peter will leave tomorrow. So
Maybe we need to separate Peter and Jack so that they are in.
No, okay. If you are not supposed to complain for yourself. Don't complain for another.
Yeah.
Go on.
Group 2, James Maina, George Okundo, Eric Langat, and Marcin Muema.
Anybody unhappy with being in that group? Okay, that group.
Group 3, one is not yet come, Christine Kimodo, Sam Omwenda, Joe Jamhuri, and Reverend Musimi.
Anybody unhappy with that group? Okay. Can we each group, let's have a contact, somebody to report back. Just pick somebody who the convener of the group. Group 1?
Maybe now that Christine has not come, maybe now one can move from, because there are 5,
Yeah.
from Group 1 to Group 3. But I know Peter will not be here tomorrow because he has to do something else. But for today, he can support us.
Okay. Yeah, but who should be the convener for that group?
Can be the same
Group 1.
as Christine. Peter can be the same group where Christine is. So Peter does today, tomorrow.
Yeah, so we have George Amuri, Reverend Musimi, myself, now Peter. So maybe you can have one of the ESCO members like Joel.
So have you accepted?
Yes.
Oh, good. He has accepted. Group 2?
James Maina, George Okundo, Eric Rangat, those 3 are from the board, and then Marcin Muema is our HR.
Suggest, they can refuse, but suggest a leader. No, you are not a leader, you're just a convener to call the meeting together.
George.
He is suggesting what you should suggest. Okay. Who have we agreed? JM? Okay. The last group?
The first one I read was Bishop Chairman, Ruth Nabie, Maureen Maina, and Jack Odhiambo.
Yeah, certainly not, the chairman will not be the leader. So pick somebody else.
Ruth?
Jack.
The convener.
You want a
Okay.
group member? Or
No, any, as long as he has some leadership skills.
Yeah. Jack, the leader has suggested.
Don't report back and say your group refused to meet. So, once you are convener, the group must meet. Is everybody sleeping here?
Me, I'm going away today.
So you are not a good member of the group if it wants to meet afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, but let's assume you agree when to meet. During tea, agree when to meet. And you can see this is now not an exercise for knowledge. Serious matter. You are putting recommendations to the organization on how to improve so that the governance becomes better. So take the exercise seriously. Okay, now.
We can stand and stretch a little.
Oh.
We have been seated for a while.
This guy has lectured in many universities. I think he must be knowing that you normally must stand up after some time.
We can have the questions also.
The question should be put back.
Yes.
Yeah, as we stretch.
JM has taken the floor.
But remember, you are going for tea in a very short time. That's
But
why.
the questions are there. Just stretch a little. Stretch. I would have told you to write a coconut, but let's just.
That's for tomorrow.
Yes, for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we can sit.
So I assume I assume